This is the Blue Collar Future podcast where we talk about the future of trade work. Welcome back to another episode. It is Memorial Day. Um, Taking this weekend to really appreciate everything that I have, and I hope everybody at home has done the same. This episode's going to be short and sweet, as don't want to take too much time out of your day on this Memorial Day, as well as my own. Have some things going on with family, and it's just the way it goes. And figured it's the perfect time to discuss some scheduling problems that people may have. Now, a lot of people talk about how in blue collar work, you don't have time to yourself and you're always tired. Um, and there's just not enough time in the day. And that's a common theme everywhere. What I've found is the more that I do and the more that I push myself and the more I add to my schedule, the more free time that I find, but there is a limit. I've talked about this before where I felt like when I started training jujitsu that I had all this free time that I didn't even realize because I found time that I was wasting either scrolling on my phone or sitting on the couch doing nothing, watching TV, whatever it is, and was repurposing it for jujitsu, for training, for bettering myself. I think a lot of us fall into this trap about complaining about not having enough time, but never actually trying to figure out how to get more time or what even that means. Time's a limited resource and it's the most important thing to us. And when I started thinking about my time as a value to me, when I started thinking about my time as more valuable than it had been thought of previously, I started finding a lot more time that I wasn't wasting. I heard a quote recently that said life is a chess game. You're always trying to make the best move, and rarely is the best move sitting on the couch watching TV. All of that makes a lot of sense, but I think the problem where we as humans run into is it's super easy to get comfortable and to do mind-numbing activities that are not beneficial to us, but may be, like I said, comfortable. And to put us into a place of comfort where we are wasting time and we lose track of time. It is a very natural thing to want to do that because we want to expend the least amount of energy possible because we have instincts to survive, which, I mean, if you look at our ability to store energy, as in store fat, it has evolved this way because of our past of not knowing if we are going to eat, not knowing when we're going to eat. We're always trying to return to this state of comfort, but rarely does this state of comfort actually benefit us. And it's hard to look at our day and find time when we are in a state of comfort because we're seeing that as a necessity. But the thing is it's not. And the more that I look into this on my own, in my own life, the more I realize that a lot of stuff I do is a complete waste of time. And not all of that's bad either. You don't always need to be running, you don't always need to be doing stuff. And I find myself kicking myself because I'm not staying busy, because I'm not getting anything done. And it's hard for me to just relax and do nothing. And if I do that, it always ends up being scrolling on my phone, watching TV, doing these mind-numbing activities that don't serve me. What I started doing when I was trying to fit all these things into my schedule is I would fill that time with useful um, activities. Like I started learning Spanish because of this idea that I didn't have time. And I always wondered and thought to myself, well, how do I not have time to do that? There's a lot of people out there that work a ton and they still have time for their families. I think that this idea of time over is undervalued by a lot of people, and they aren't seeing their time as valuable as it is. If you look at your time that you have in your day as worth $50 an hour, or even what you make, which for some of you could be $20 an hour, it's not as valuable as if you start looking at your time as worth 100, 200, 300, $400 an hour, and how valuable that time is, because at the end of the day, your time is invaluable. You can't put a price on it. I think the problem with nowadays is everybody is accustomed to a per hour, dollar per hour amount. So your time has become less valuable because of the way the system is valuing it to you. One major change you can make in your own life is seeing your time as more valuable even than what you make. And when you start looking at it that way, and you start looking at, okay, what is the best thing I can do for myself right now? Is it sitting down on the couch watching TV, or is it scrolling on YouTube, learning things that can help me in my career? Is it learning some Spanish on my phone, organizing pictures and um, content that I've had? There's a lot that we can do to fill that time, but it's much easier and much more comfortable to fill it with mind-numbing, useless activities, which is far too often the state that we are in, is a constant state of mind-numbing comfort where we are not pushing ourselves, we're not growing, we're not putting ourselves out there. It's a state of equilibrium, I guess we should say, of doing nothing, no change. But change is good. Change challenges you. You can grow and learn as a person. But it comes from that place of discomfort, which is why I feel like a lot of people act like they do not have enough time, because they're seeing their time as not as valuable and they're filling it with useless activities, which can really, really mess up your perception of how much time you have to begin with. Now, after coming across this revelation for myself, I did start running into a point where I didn't have enough time for everything. And that's mainly because of timing of the day and scheduling and commitments that I have that can't be changed. For, jujitsu, for example, it's way too hard for me to make it to the classes that they have because the times don't work out for me. It's not because I don't have enough time, it's because the time of class is too late in the morning and too late in the evening for me to go, because I go to work early and I usually get done work late and then have stuff to do at home, and I don't have time to go be there, and I go to bed later than I would be, I mean, earlier than I would be if I'm going to that. So there's a few things to think through there, and the cost to value add needs to be looked at. But the thing is you'll never start figuring that out until you start bringing new activities, new hobbies, new interests into your life. So usually what I would recommend to people is, if they're trying to figure out how to value their time more and to get more time, is to start doing more, but to start simple. So my first venture into a lot of this space was when I was starting out at the university here. I was going to school full time and working full time. But at that time, I also started going to the gym and adding the gym into my regular routine for many reasons. But one of them was to improve my health because I felt like I didn't feel good all the time and I didn't know why. So that was one thing I wanted to try to improve on. And I didn't feel like I had enough time for it, but I started doing it anyways. And when I started adding that in, I realized that I could make time for it and I wasted a lot of time doing other stuff. Flash forward to now where I still work out, work full time. My wife and I have a business that takes up my time. I have this podcast to do. We're starting to build a house. I'm creating a lot of content for my personal page, for the podcast page, for our concrete page, for the flat work company. And I feel like my time has run short. And I'm running into a different problem of where it's not that I feel like I don't have enough time, it's where I feel like I'm always doing something. And then it pushes me also into that same state of doing nothing, mind-numbing activities where I'm not accomplishing anything. Some things that I have done to overcome some of that is, which I don't think is a good thing, but it works for me, is I'll have TV going on in the background while I'm working on the podcast, for example, because it's hard for me to focus a lot of the time. So I will have the TV on in the background and I'll kind of stop doing what I'm doing and watch the TV for a while and get back to work, and I'll do some work for 20, 30 minutes and kind of go back to watching the TV for a little bit. And it's not ideal, but it also works, and it works for me and it works to help me get stuff done. And that's the way I've gotten a lot of this stuff done here, because if I'm alone with my thoughts in a deep work state, can't maintain that very long. And this is something that everybody should be working towards, being able to focus and being able to be in a deep work state. And this is how, for me right now, what I'm doing. I've been so accustomed to being active and outside and moving that it's easy for me to stay busy doing that and stay focused. It's very much harder to stay focused in a scenario like this where I am talking to myself in this podcast setting, or scheduling our social media posts, or coming up with um, ideas for my next podcast, or editing the episodes, or whatever it is, that task that I have at hand. It's hard for me to stay focused. So this is a little bit of what I'm doing to help me focus along these lines, which is why a lot of these solo episodes probably feel like they're all over the place. And I'm always saying how it's going to be a short episode or a long episode, or it's kind of last minute. It's hard for me to focus. And this is something that I've been tackling now that I have filled my schedule with so much stuff, that now I'm running into not a problem of where I feel like I don't have enough time. It's where I feel like I don't, I want to sit around and do nothing because there's so much to do, because it's overwhelming to me. So there's a little bit of nuances here. And I think for a lot of people, especially that I've talked to, where they work a 9 to 5 and then they go home and they have their kids and that's it. And they don't work out, they don't read books, they don't practice Spanish, like whatever it is. They don't have any hobbies other than they go to work and then they go home and have their kids. And I'm always thinking to myself, well, what do you do with all the free time? Because it doesn't take 24 hours of your day to go to work and go home. There is time in there to work out, to read a book, to learn some new skills, learn a language, do whatever, like whatever it is that you're wanting to, but you say that you don't have time for, there is time there. But start treating your time as more valuable than what you're treating it right now. Start actually scheduling things into your day. Get a consistent sleep routine where you go to bed at the same time and you wake up at the same time. With kids, it's hard because they won't sleep through the night, whatever it is. Be in bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. And if you happen to be not get quite enough sleep, it is what it is, and you can deal with it later by taking a nap or whatever. But have some sort of consistency to your routine. Take turns with your spouse, whatever it is that you have to do. There is time in there. If you want to work out, you can tell your spouse that you want to do it before work and maybe leave a little bit early and go to the gym before you go to work, or maybe stop on the way home. And then once you're home, you're there. You're there with your family instead of being disconnected and on your phone. Because while a lot of you may say that you don't have time because of this, I know for a fact that a lot of people go to work, come home, say they don't have time because they have to spend time with their family, but that time spent with their family is on their phone, watching TV, mind-numbing activities where they're not actually spending time with their family. They're just there. And I fall into this trap as well. That's why I know that everybody does it. Everybody does that, and I see it every day. And then a lot of these people that tell me this don't even realize what they're doing to themselves. They're wasting all of their time at home pretending and using their family as an excuse, but not actually spending time and connecting with their family. So, as I think the theme of this podcast, what I would title it as, is not even being managing time, because it is about managing your time, but it's about being mindful. And that's what the Memorial Weekend is all about, is being mindful of sacrifices that have been made for you, of mindful of people who have come before you, who have been close to you and have passed away. It's about being mindful. I would say, as you're being mindful today about your ancestors, about your friends and family that have passed, be mindful about how you're spending your time, and be mindful about the way that you're spending your time. Because I promise it's not, you have more time than you think, and what you're doing, it probably isn't as significant as what you think it is. Mainly because people are not mindful about the way that they spend their time. When you are not mindful about the way you spend your time, your subconscious takes over and you get into this state of doing the same thing over and over again and doing nothing, scrolling on your phone. I mean, everybody knows that how you can get sucked into your phone and get on Instagram for a minute and it turns into an hour, wasting all of that time subconsciously without being mindful about the way that you're spending it. This is as much of a reminder for everybody else as it is for me. I happen to be thinking about that for myself today. So I wanted to share that thought with everybody. And I appreciate everybody listening in. I hope you got something from this. Like I always say, if you followed along with this, I applaud you, because it's hard for me to focus a lot of the time and to complete my thoughts relatively quick without jumping on a bunch of side tangents. Be mindful. I appreciate you listening in. If you want to support the podcast, share it with a friend who you think will get something out of it. And we'll see you next week.